So today I thought we'd take a look at an item that was delivered recently. I don't know if you can read this. It came from POCCUA, Russia. It was an eBay purchase. It was shipped on February 1st of 18 and it arrived 3 or 4 days ago. So I thought we'd go ahead and open this thing up together and take a look what we've got inside. It came by United States, USPS. It's wrapped up quite a bit here. Let's cut through tape. Obviously, being on my channel, it's going to be some kind of a technology. Inroads into opening it here. Well, we're through the next layer. He did a good job wrapping it overall. Hopefully it has survived its trek halfway around the world. It is something I've never seen before, or even realized existed in the way it does. Wow, layer of bubble wrap. You get down to another layer of cardboard. So somebody did put some effort into wrapping it, which is appreciated. It was a little bit spendy. But in an era of unusual items, which is something I couldn't pass up. Got to be careful cutting here because I think we're getting close to the actual device. So we had bag shrink wrap, or bag cardboard shrink wrap, box, more cardboard. And based on what I'm feeling now, I don't hear anything rattling, which is a good sign. Let's figure out what they've done here. Yeah, at this point, I'm just down to the device and this bag wrapped around it, so I need to be a little more careful cutting. And always with these videos, I debate whether just to give away in the title what it is, or to try to build some anticipation of what it is. Of course, the pair of scissors that should be hanging there are not hanging there. Certainly tougher than it looks. Got an interesting smell to it. As Dave Jones would like to say, it smells like vintage electronics. I'm not exactly sure that's the smell I'm getting. Does look like all the bits and pieces might be here. I'm going to assume this is a Soviet power plug, and it is. It's nice, so I know it's line powered, so I can at some point hopefully get power to it. Yes, the cords are tangled in the OCD part of my personality says the cords must be untangled. So I've got a couple of just little copper spade plugs here, of brass, a power cord, little manual that it's interesting that has, I guess the bag has been reused. I don't know. I am hoping to be able to get this little manual translated. There we go. Hopefully I've got that somewhat in frame. You're probably getting an idea looking at the front of the manual what this is. I will get this manual scanned and added as part of the video. I think there's some schematics taped in the back here. And there are, which is always interesting, component locations. And I'm guessing this is the actual schematic, and it is. It's interesting to have a piece of consumer electronics have the schematic in it. That is an interesting little tidbit there. That is definitely not the highest quality paper I've ever touched. So let's flip it over. And we of course have some select switches. Oh, interesting. You can select from both rows at the same time. I don't think that's necessarily how it's meant to be used. A volume knob. I know there's some way the cover comes off. There is a release here. At least I'm guessing that's a release. There's a hinge along the front. Some switches along the back. Oh, that's interesting. That fuse is just exposed like that. You can see that. Assuming that's the power line fuse. That does look like it's meant to, there it goes. Unclick, there we go. And what we find inside is this. And this is what caught my eye. So, hopefully the camera will follow focus-wise here. And you can get a look at what that is and perhaps guess at what it is. It's an interesting example to me of using essentially rote memory to program something. So you probably figured out by now this is an auto dialer for a Russian telephone. You can call through 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So 20. Well, it makes sense. So 20 numbers. I'm not quite sure here without looking at the manual. But the way this works is you take this fine wire and you weave it through the cores to program the number you want to dial. So if we take the yellow wire here, and we can just follow it. It's through the core, around the core, through, around, through, around. And depending on whether you're through the little core or you're around the core, represents a 1 or a 0. And based on that, you can basically program the numbers you want dialed by wrapping the memory through the cores. It's a quite interesting little device. There's a little fold down door here. So apparently it does store 40 phone numbers. I see 1 through 40. I don't know if you can see this here in the little fold down door. There's a little insert and there's actually some writing across some of these. So I guess you can store 40 numbers. So I'm not quite sure how that works. Is this phone number 30? And 29? I don't know. So I don't read Russian. It'll be rather hard to translate the manual. There's a little bit of clunking going on inside of there. which is disturbing. Hopefully the insides have survived the trip. Let's go ahead and release that plastic panel. I heard the nut drop off on that one. And I heard the nut drop off on that one. I have to say the plastic feels rather plasticky. The build quality doesn't seem tremendously great. It's no surprise. Guess that one hasn't really released yet. Or maybe the nut's fallen through, yeah. Just a little nut. That one's got a washer on it. The nut fell off of that one, so I should be able to get a hold of the screw. So 3 of the 4 nuts fell loose. This one is still captive. It seems like it's going to stay captive. I'm assuming to lift this off, I'm going to need to release the little bits of foam wire. It is quite an interesting little device. This is just solid core, copper wire. Same thing we use here in the US for, you know, plain old telephone service. Let's see if I can fish this out of here. For me, the fascination with this was the fact that it's using a core memory, or, you know, essentially a rope memory to program it, rather than, you know, a semiconductor memory or perhaps some kind of cards. Or it's just an interesting twist on a memory device. If you're familiar with the Apollo program and what got us to the moon, they used a rope memory for the computer on the lunar module and in the command module. You can research this online. The ones and zeros were weaved into the memory by a sense wire going through or around a core. There's some excellent video of these being wound or weaved, or whatever the appropriate term is. Boy, I can see this being really frustrating to put together, and getting 40 wires weaved through this at the same time would be quite a rat's nest. It's only got 2 wires and it's become unwieldy here. See if I can finally get both of those to pull through. The wire's got an odd feel and texture to it. That should let that little panel lift off. Sitting back down flush here. If it'll sit flush, I keep putting it on the power cord. And you get a first glimpse at what's inside. There's, of course, these connectors. The ferrite beads and their little holders here. Hopefully this is going to come into focus. You can see each one of the ferrite loops and a little plastic holder with a bunch of copper wire rammed through them to create the selects, etc. Ultimately, you read this essentially as an XY pattern, whether it's 4 by, what is that, 7? 4 by 7, I don't know. There's actually some integrated circuits in here with date codes at 10th week 82, 1st week 82, 10th week 82. So these chips are all from early 82. There's some beautiful glass diodes stacked along here. And of course these transistors that are mounted upside down with the leads splayed over to the board. It's definitely an interesting build. I'm myself pretty fascinated with these little loops. And the way this thing is designed to work. There's a piece of broken plastic that has fallen out. I don't know where that came from. It's the same color as these connectors. Or is this little cover plate? The cover plate is intact. I don't see any chipped plastic on it. I'm not seeing where that bit of plastic came from. Well, the fact that it plugs into the mains line is quite interesting. With the step-up transformer, I should be able to power it here in the US. And I'm assuming there's a relay in there, ultimately. Why that screw is really tight. As is that one. This may not be the best screwdriver for these, it's a little big. I'm assuming there's a relay that we should be able to make click, assuming that it's operational to actually have it do something. Yeah. Sorry, I'm concentrating here, which means I'm not paying attention to the screw, or I'm not talking. I'm trying to keep that screw turning. I can't tell if that's stripped inside of there or that screw's just a little bit too narrow with the screwdriver. I said before, the build quality is top notch. Of course, I'm lying. The plastic is, it may just be that it started to decompose. It's kind of tacky a little bit. Maybe it just needs to be cleaned. It just feels cheap. That has started to release, or released. Actually, this screw was not used to hold the top on, which is why it just spun free. Well, I may know where that bit of broken plastic came from. You may have saw the speaker fell out of the speaker holder there. Just a little plastic cover. There's where I do believe the piece of broken plastic came from. So I will be able to epoxy that back into place. That's not too bad. It's on the back side, which helps. Couple little tiny neon bulbs. Not sure why the speaker has fallen loose. It's got one hell of a magnet on it. I have no idea what just rolled out of it. It's not broken. The build, as I've said, is quite interesting. Power transistor on a heatsink buried down in here. And of course so this looks like the power switch based on where the power comes in. And then to the fuse. Very large, very rough feeling potentiometer here. Sure that's for volume. Don't know if that's hold or what. Third little neon bulb there. There's a reed relay sitting here, which may be ultimately how it dials. Eventually, when I get through the owner's manual, hopefully get it translated, I'll know more. It looks like this main printed circuit board is going to have to be released and pulled out. And I'm suspecting this is screwed in through the back of the PCB. See, the construction is not particularly pretty. Not sure why the speaker has fallen out. I'm sure that got jarred loose in transit. I don't see anything broken. I don't know what this here is under the plastic without doing a bit deeper tear down. I'm trying to decide the best way to get these little screws loose. Two, one, and what appears to be power, so I'm assuming it maybe two lines. Another reed relay hiding in there. Boy, the construction really isn't very pretty. It just isn't. No, you're too big to reach in there. I'm not going to be able to get in there and get a hold of that nut. I think that'll work. Looks like it could use some retro bright. Is going to be a little trickier. It's not in a great spot. Get the pliers on too, and I've got to keep it upright. Okay, where'd the screw roll off to? Here's another one of these. So there's two of these that have come out of it. These may be what was holding the speaker in place. And I suspect now this board will lift out. You can drag some length through on the cords. I'm engaged on one of the wires accidentally. Take a look underneath. Single-sided board. Well, no, double-sided board. I take that back. plated through. Those are for the heat sink. Those mount that switch. Let's see if I can figure out which one. So this and this are for that speaker bracket. And they are just self-tappers. No surprise. Just enough tension on them to hold them in place. And my guess is these self-tappers are the other side of the bracket. And they are. The heads are different on these self-tappers, so they kind of stand out. And those are much shorter self-tappers. Yep, that released that little bracket that has the speaker. So let's flip it back over again without dropping the speaker. Let's see if we can figure out how that speaker was held in there. So it really was just over these 4 little posts. Which were slightly melted. So I will have to find a better way to secure the speaker back. I will hot glue that in perhaps. Still don't know what these were for. Oh, I bet these were standoffs for these long screws. That's got to be what they were. It was a standoff on these long screws. That would make sense. Still not sure what this is. Oh, it's there's a copper windings inside, so it's some kind of an inductor. These devices are interesting, the 4 black ones here. Obviously they're diodes. We've got the output of the transformer. This must be a diode bridge here. That would make sense. I'm guessing that's an electrolytic filter cap, voltage regulator of some kind, potentially. At least a pass transistor for a voltage regulator. I'm sure that's what that is power supply. And then all these dead bug mounted transistors, which is quite interesting. The way they're mounted upside down here, they're just floating. I don't feel any glue. Like that guy there has actually been knocked around and has a leg shorted to the body. I'll have to check all these before I apply power. It's just interesting, they're all dead bug. I'm assuming these are more electrolytic caps, most likely. A diode and a diode. Reading that one, I think it says 20 microfarad. It's hard to say. This one's a little clearer. 20. I'm guessing that's 20 microfarad the way that's marked. And 50 volt, it's awful tiny to be. No, that's a part number. "14th week at 85, but that's got a date code. I don't necessarily see a voltage rating on it. Want that getting over there and interfering with the wires over there. Yes, Rosie, I hear you in there. That's a very large, interesting device there. Hopefully the camera's tracking focus-wise. Here, it's definitely polarized. It's in a metal can. It's similar to these that I know are diodes based on the packaging. Not sure what it is. But we can throw the meter on it and take a couple quick measurements and see if we can take a guess. The other thing to note here is how these gang switches are wired up. Rather than be like a circuit board, they are actually wired individually. Rosie, yes, I know, you want attention, I'm busy. They're wired individually here. There's some kind of plastic insulation over the wires. Rosie, be patient. You're such a little goofball. Of course, all these cords poking through. There's not room for it to sit back there. Yes, I know, little girl. She has a collapsing trachea, and it causes her to choke a bit. Okay, it's set back down in flush. And we'll get a diode test here, and we'll take a peek at a few of these diodes. Same I can hold on to the leads. Forward of 0.46 volts. This one's got a forward of 0.61. Forward of 0.7. Boy, these are really inconsistent diode to diode. I must be maybe looking back into the circuit. 0.46. Yeah, I'm looking back and 0.46 volts and 0.7 volts. So I'm not seeing typical diode behavior of open in one direction and very low in the other. They look like they have a 0.5 or so volt forward voltage based on what I'm seeing here. It definitely appears I'm seeing through into something else in the circuit, which is interesting. Maybe to the filter cap, though. I'm not sure that makes a ton of sense to me. Point 3. 2.1, 0.3 is getting into the germanium kind of range. Rather than silicon, 0.6. 0.28. I'm guessing this is a diode as well. 0.1 forward. 0.109 volts in either direction. Again, who knows what I'm looking back through in the circuit. I'm going to guess these are transistors, although that's interesting. On most of these you can see insulation from the leads. On this one, maybe it's covered with something. Yeah, I'll get on the body. Wow, 0.2 forward. 0.2 forward. 0.3. 0.18. I am not seeing what I would consider a semiconductor transistor there. Yep, okay, I'm seeing an open there. So we must be looking back through the circuit as I'm poking around here. This wiring is kind of a little rat's nest. And of course, wiring up to the little neon bulbs. Well, at this point, there's a quick look, an unboxing. Oh, why are you jammed in there? I'll do a bit of repair work. And we'll look for anything like this where the package has been moved and it's almost shorted up against a leg. Although in this case it wouldn't matter. That's the leg is the package. And clean it up a bit. In a future video we will put power on it Let's see if we can make it do anything. Of course, if anybody reads Russian and wants to translate the manual for me, I would not say no. It's quite the strange little manual. Not sure what that's telling me. Maybe it's like a microphone input or something. Yeah, it's right on the inside of the door that you're programmed for. So there were 7 positions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I guess it's for dialing 7-digit phone numbers. Would that make sense? And then the way you weave through each one of these, that's exactly what it is. For a 1, through, around, through. For a 2, through, around. For a 3, through, around. Okay. For a 4. No, there's a video finished rendering downstairs. So I'm going to have to go and check it out. It's auto-playing down there. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll get some better scans of this for the video before I post it. Well, November 15th, 1988. So it had some kind of a quality notation or whatever. 831.84. 831.84. So these must be certifications of quality, or you can be hooked up to their telecom system or whatever. More checks and stamps. Component list. Lots of resistors, capacitors. It's interesting, it's got all the components called out in the schematic. It's a piece of consumer gear. And I'm used to seeing that like vintage computers and that kind of stuff, but I don't know that in the US I ever encountered a schematic inside of the packaging for a telephone dialer or even a telephone. I'll get this to unfold. Come on, you unfold. There you go. Yeah, they're definitely drawn in here as transistors. So, look like PNPs. Now there's PNP, NPN, if I can believe the symbols are kind of hard to see. That array of diodes we saw. And of course, I don't know these logic symbols. They're just boxes with numbers in them that you basically can't read. It's a pretty bad reproduction. Anyhow, I'll stop shooting video here at this point. And as I make progress, I'll shoot additional video.